Hello everyone. I wish you all a good evening enjoying a good ghost story with the gentle sound of rain from BLACKRIDGE stories and a peaceful and good night's sleep. I used to believe the forest was a peaceful place, a refuge where people could escape the hectic pace of city life, where birdsong and rustling leaves replaced car horns and meetings. But that belief shattered on an autumn night when everything changed in the Wolf Creek Preserve. At the time, I was a part-time ranger. The job mostly involved driving along a few trails, checking wildlife cameras, and occasionally reminding campers not to build fires too large. But that night, the night I was assigned to patrol around Black Hollow Lake, everything veered off course, onto a path no map could chart. Around 11 p.m., I was standing on the south watchtower, sipping cold coffee and jotting notes in my log. The night cloaked the lake like a thick velvet curtain. The water was eerily still, not a ripple despite the breeze brushing across its surface. Then I felt it. Not heard, not seen, felt. A faint vibration ran through the ground, through the wooden beam I leaned on, then threaded itself up my spine. A low, distant rumble like a train far away. Except there were no tracks here. Instinctively, I held my breath, and then the lake moved. At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then concentric ripples formed, radiating outward from the center as if something enormous had been dropped in. I switched on my flashlight. Its narrow beam sliced through the fog, but couldn't pierce the lake's black surface. It emerged, slowly, unhurried, as though it had waited a long time just to be seen. And as it rose, every rule I'd known ceased to apply. The creature wasn't just big. It expanded as you looked at it, like the space around it was warping and collapsing. The sky behind it vanished, eclipsed by its nameless shape. I aimed my light at it, and in that moment, I wished I hadn't. Its scales, if they could be called that, shifted constantly in color, like oil spreading across water, creating optical illusions that made my eyes ache. I turned away, but the image was seared into my brain, contours and forms that defied language, like the logic of a fevered dream. The air turned cold. My breath smoked in front of me. The silence was so absolute. I could hear the blood pulsing through my ears. I pulled the shotgun from the patrol truck, a reflexive act from someone clinging to logic in a world gone mad. I fired. The sound echoed like thunder trapped in a dead valley. But the creature didn't react. No roar, no scream. It just stood there, silently, as if it were watching me. Then it vanished. Not by sinking, but by unraveling, like black smoke sucked back into the lake. All that remained was a dark streak across the surface, and a stench strange, like ozone, like rotting flesh. A smell that was part machine, part corpse, both futuristic and primal. I don't remember how I got back to the ranger station. Maybe I ran. Maybe I drove in a trance. When I came to, it was morning, and police cars had sealed off the area. They didn't believe me, not until they saw the traces. The ground where the creature stood was scorched to black ash. A line of trees near the lake had collapsed, all bent in one direction, like hit by a blast from the lake center. And the wood pillar on the watchtower where I had stood showed a strange corrosion, like acid, but odorless, untraceable by any chemical test. The next day, I received a thick envelope, no return address. Inside was a short contract. Unidentified biological field consultant. The pay was enough to let me live for a year without lifting a finger. Every 3 months, more funds would quietly appear in my account. I didn't ask. I didn't dare ask. I spent most of the time afterward on my porch, staring at the stars, trying to guess which of them might be staring back. I stayed away from Wolf Creek, away from the forest, away from that lake. But the thing wasn't done with me. One night I got a call. "Arthur, it's me, Felix." Felix, an old friend, the one who took me camping in Wolf Creek 3 years ago. The first time I sensed something wasn't right in that forest. His voice trembled, but not from fear, from excitement. "Arthur, it's me, Felix." His voice came through the line, hesitant in an odd way. I hadn't heard from Felix in nearly a year, since the last time we went camping together out east near Wolf Creek, where the darkness clung to every tree like thick, living skin. That time, Felix said the forest made him feel light, while I spent the entire night holding my breath, waiting for something I couldn't name, to slither through the seams of the tent. It's been a long time, I replied quietly, trying to keep the tremor out of my voice. I thought you moved out of state. I did, but the woods still call. And now I think I found something. A map. Really old. Hand-drawn. Nothing like I've ever seen before. I closed my eyes. My palms turned cold. Felix continued without waiting for me to respond. I know you still dream about it, Arthur. Don't tell me you don't. I said nothing. Maybe he was right. Maybe I still dream, but not normal dreams anymore. Just warped fragments of memory. A pitch-black lake. A rumbling beneath the ground. And a gaze that didn't belong to any living creature in this world. I'm going back, Felix said, his voice firmer. Not the same place. This time, it's north of Wolf Creek. Will you come with me? I should have said no. I did say no, at least in my head. But my mouth said, when? We met 3 days later at the edge of a small town called Dunley. The place had a single gas station, a run-down motel, and a nameless bar with a flickering neon sign. Felix didn't look the way I remembered, thinner, hollow-eyed, and something piercing in his gaze, as if he had seen something that shifted his mind out of alignment with reality, and instead of running, he had stepped closer. I know you're scared, Felix said as we sat in the bar over warm beer, but you have to understand, we didn't see that thing by accident that night. It chose you, and I need to know why. I don't know if it was the beer, the dim light, or his voice, but I nodded. The next morning, we drove deep into the forest, following a faint trail drawn on the map Felix brought, a yellowed piece of paper, its ink a reddish-brown like dried blood. There were no names, just symbols, circles, spirals, hash marks, and one recurring letter. Theta. Do you know what this means? I asked, pointing at it. Felix gave a dry chuckle. Theta. In old math, it represented death. In even older languages, it was the symbol for the gate. We left the car at the forest's edge and began to walk. Each step sank into rotting leaves like something was pulling us back. No birdsong, no wind, just the growing heaviness of my breath and Felix's strangely steady footsteps. We walked for nearly 8 hours. The light filtering through the canopy grew dimmer, as if time had slowed or twilight had stretched into eternity. And then I started to feel it, that familiar sense. Something was watching. I see it, Felix whispered when we stopped to rest. He pointed at an old tree trunk where a swirling eye-like pattern was carved, deep and jagged, as if etched with claws. Unmistakable. I remembered that shape on the old observatory where I had once faced it. We set up camp beside a small stream. The water was ice cold, but so clear we could see all the way to the bottom. I tried to wash away my unease with instant coffee, while Felix sat silently, eyes scanning the woods as if listening. Night came. No one slept. I lay in my freezing sleeping bag, eyes fixed on the shadowy silhouette of the trees against the tent ceiling. Then I heard footsteps. Not human, not animal, but something larger, heavier and aware. I bolted upright, grabbing my gun. Felix was already outside the tent, unmoving. I see it, he repeated, this time in the present tense. I followed his gaze and saw it, a pair of eyes glowing in the dark. No firelight could reflect eyes like those. This was a gaze filled with ancient knowledge and hatred beyond anything human. I fired. The gunshot cracked like thunder through the night, but just like before, the bullet passed through the air, leaving no trace, no cry, no blood, no movement, only the eyes gone in a blink. Felix didn't speak for the rest of the night. He just sat there, back turned to me, staring into the void between the trees. In the morning, I woke to the sound of running water. Felix was gone. All that remained was a folded note beside the tent, scrawled in shaky handwriting. I have to go deeper. Don't follow me, but if you must, go alone. Bring nothing from the forest back. Do not look behind you. I stayed 2 more days, waiting for Felix to return. He didn't, and then I left, but not to escape. to find him, or find whatever he believed he had found. I left home on a foggy morning, carrying a backpack, a map, and a nameless sense of dread. Felix had left me a voicemail I couldn't erase from my mind. It spoke to me, Arthur, not in words, but in images and warped tones. I have to find it. The message ended with a soft hiss, like someone whispering right beside my ear. That's why I drove through the Appalachian Range, winding along narrow mountain roads, toward a small town that doesn't appear on tourist maps. Linden Hollow, where Felix said everything started fitting together like broken pieces. I arrived at twilight, just as the sun was being swallowed by the western ridge. Linden Hollow felt forgotten by time. Crooked old houses, rusted general store signs, and silence that wrapped everything like a heavy blanket. People stared at me as if I'd brought something I shouldn't have. An old man standing on his porch said just one thing: "If you hear anything in the wind, don't answer." I rented a room at a wooden lodge by the edge of the forest. The innkeeper, a silver-haired woman, stared at me as I signed the register. "Arthur Melva, huh? Just like the other one. Your friend. Felix, he stayed here." She nodded, then pulled out a small notebook. "He left this. Said to give it to you if you came. But I don't think you should read it. There are things in there not meant for people." I took the notebook back to my room. It was handwritten, the script shaky, sometimes as if scratched out with a fingernail or a sharp object. Some pages were filled with strange symbols, resembling a fusion of mathematical notation and ancient Sumerian script. The final page had been torn out, but faintly etched into what remained was the sentence: "Not in the trees, not beneath the ground. It's in the frequency." That night, I couldn't sleep. The wind howled through the window, like voices whispering in a register too low to understand, but clear enough to chill my spine. Outside, the forest was pitch black, like a curtain. I felt something moving, not physically, but as a thought, a presence. The next morning, I followed Felix's old map to the frequency convergence point he had marked with a spiral symbol. It was a patch of barren land behind town, where the trees leaned strangely and no birds ever sang. I brought an old tape recorder, placing it at the center of a circle of stones. There was no sound, but when I played the tape back, I heard a whisper. Not in English, not in any language I recognized, but it had inflection, like a song played backward, or like someone trying to mimic human speech without understanding meaning. I don't remember how I got back to my room. All I know is that by nightfall, Felix's notebook had opened on its own to the final page, the one that had been torn out, and the writing had reappeared on the paper as if freshly inked. "It saw you, and it has learned how to speak." I collapsed. My ears rang. For a few seconds, I heard hundreds of voices whispering the same word, one with no meaning, but heavy with possession. From that moment on, whenever I entered the woods around Linden Hollow, everything felt blurred. The compass didn't point true. The clock ticked backward. I saw blue light slithering through the fog, leading me to a stone house covered in vines, where no one lived, but the door was always open. Inside that house, I found records left by others, explorers, audio engineers, an Icelandic musician who had gone missing in Carolina. All of them wrote about the same thing, a frequency that does not belong to this world. On my final night in Linden Hollow, I pitched a tent at the forest's edge. As darkness fell, I turned on the recorder. No birds, no wind, only one voice, the voice of myself, whispering from inside the machine. "Arthur, it has chosen you." I tore down the tent and ran without looking back. But I know, somehow, the whisper came with me. I saw Robert again a few days after leaving Linden Hollow, at a secluded inn on the edge of the Nantahala forest. The night wind rustled through the thick canopy, and the air felt heavy, thickened, as if the forest itself was holding a secret too vast for any human to comprehend. Robert sat waiting for me beside the fireplace, his face noticeably older, though his eyes still held that wild gleam. "You heard it, didn't you?" he asked, his voice coarse like dying embers. I nodded. There was no more denial, no more doubt. We were confronting something unnameable, and Robert said there was only one way forward, A ritual under the new moon. We left the inn close to midnight, each carrying a torch and a cloth bag filled with strange items, dried oak moss, bone fragments no bigger than fingers, and a necklace made of human hair and teeth. I didn't ask anymore. I had gone too far to turn back. The forest opened before us like a gaping black maw. The wind had ceased. All sound had vanished. We followed a path only Robert knew, venturing deeper into a land he called the thinnest place, the boundary between two realities. There, he said, the ritual might succeed, or it might kill us. The new moon hung in the sky like a bloodless wound. We arrived at a clearing where moss-covered stones formed a spiral, and at its center was a pit that seemed bottomless. Robert began to recite the incantation, his voice trembling but forceful. I stood beside him, spilling my blood onto the earth as he instructed. The air shifted. First came the sound, whispers echoing faintly from deep within the woods. Then came sensation, like hundreds of invisible hands brushing against my skin. My heart raced wildly. Space itself seemed to bend. My vision blurred, and from the edge of the abyss, a dense black mist began to rise, coiling around our legs like living smoke. I saw shapes, not clear, but unquestionably inhuman. They whispered. They wept. They giggled like lost children in the dark. I wanted to run, but my legs wouldn't move. Robert looked at me, blood seeping from his eyes. It's listening. Don't show it fear. Don't let it know we're weak. I screamed when one of the shadows touched me. Cold, empty. A piece of memory was ripped from me. A glimpse of my mother, my first smile. A childhood afternoon, gone forever. In return, I saw a vision not of this earth. Floating stone pillars in a void. Creatures with hundreds of eyes staring at me from every direction. Robert ended the ritual by burning the necklace. The flame wasn't yellow, it was green, and instead of rising, it sank. Then everything stopped. The pit closed. The smoke dispersed. The wind returned. We collapsed, exhausted. I don't know what truly happened. I don't know if the ritual stopped something, or merely served as an invitation to a force waiting for its chance. On the way back, Robert said one final thing. It saw you. Now you can't hide. I didn't sleep for days afterward. Each time I closed my eyes, I saw the pit, saw the shadows whisper my name. I'm no longer who I was, and I understand now. The ritual didn't end anything. It only began a darker journey. I left the forest with my body intact, but my mind shattered into hundreds of fragments that could never be stitched back together. Robert was gone when I woke. Only cold ashes from the campfire remained, and scorched symbols etched into the ground. I had no idea how long I'd been asleep, but the sun was high, and the world felt unnaturally silent. I returned to the city with the faint hope that the rhythm of daily life would pull me out of this lingering haze. But the city was no longer the city. The high-rise building where I once worked was now a cold mass of glass and silence. The familiar faces in the elevator avoided me like I carried a disease. No one smiled. No one spoke. Whenever I looked at someone for too long, they seemed to blur. Either their form wasn't fixed, or perhaps I was seeing them from somewhere else. I began to notice little things. The car radio distorting every time I drove near the park. Wristwatches dying exactly at 3:33 a.m. And mirrors. In every mirror I looked into, the eyes staring back at me weren't entirely mine. That reflection would blink when I didn't, or smile while I stood paralyzed in fear. The apartment I rented on the 17th floor began making strange noises. Doors creaking open at midnight, rustling sounds in the air vents, and a scent of ozone mixed with damp earth, as if remnants of that distant forest had followed me home. I changed the locks, installed cameras, set traps, but nothing ever showed up on the footage. Still, every morning I woke to find my bed rumpled, the sheets pulled askew, as if someone had been lying beside me while I slept. One night I woke up thirsty. As I stepped into the hallway, I saw the door to the apartment across from mine ajar. It had never been rented. I peeked inside, no lights, but a faint blue glow spilled out from a room deeper within, like moonlight filtered through water. I shouldn't have gone in. I knew that, but my legs moved as if under a spell. In the empty living room stood a tall mirror reaching to the ceiling, and within the mirror was the city, but not the city I lived in. In the mirror, the sky was blood red, stuck in an eternal sunset. Black clouds hovered as if ready to collapse. Faceless figures walked between buildings that leaned at impossible angles, and whenever I tried to focus on them, I heard a voice, like someone whispering directly into my skull. "You bear the mark. You opened the door. There is no way back." I screamed and fled the room, but when I returned to my apartment, everything had changed. The walls were peeling. The clocks had stopped. A single sheet of paper lay on the floor, scrawled in a shaky hand. "Felix has arrived. Now it's your turn." Panic took over. I called everyone I knew. No one answered. Phone numbers disappeared from my contacts. Emails bounced back with address not found. My bank account was gone. No hospital records. My ID was rejected at the bank. I had become a ghost in the city that used to be my home. And each night, that soft blue light spilled out from the crack under the door across the hall. I think I brought something back from the forest. A seed. A mark. And now it's erasing me from this reality, replacing me with something else. The city is still crowded, but I'm no longer sure they're human. Now I know there's no turning back. I am Arthur Melvin. I used to be part of this world, but after what I've seen, I'm not sure I belong to it anymore. Maybe the city never changed. Maybe I just saw its true face, and that face is getting closer. I no longer know whether I'm awake or dreaming. The city has vanished. The people I once knew are gone. Only silence remains, no sound, no vivid image. Just symbols, marks I cannot decipher. Each night, when I try to sleep, I'm jolted awake by sighs from somewhere in the empty room. Footsteps with no one to claim them. Familiar faces flickering in the dark, then disappearing, like ghosts from faded memories. I've begun to realize something strange. The city is no longer where I belong. It feels as though I'm living inside a cage, but one with no exit. I've tried to leave, but every road I take leads me back to the same place, the same city, the same crumbling houses and silent towers. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I got into my old car and drove straight into the forest, without knowing why. Maybe I was looking for peace. Maybe I was seeking answers. Maybe I was just trying to escape. As I entered the forest, the air grew thick, as if nothing here truly existed. Everything became blurred. The tree shadows twisted, elongated, and interwove like fingers, forming strange patterns I couldn't understand. With every step, I felt I was entering a space not of the world I once knew. This forest wasn't a normal one. It felt like a replica of another world, one I didn't belong to. And then I realized, this forest didn't exist in just one reality. It was woven between them, pulling me into a place where the boundaries blurred. There were doors, cracks, rifts in space that I could see if I looked the right way. They weren't physical gaps. They were fractures in reality, portals between this world and another. Through these doors, I glimpsed strange scenes, broken cities, fog-drenched forests, silhouettes in motion. I saw myself, but not quite me, a version walking a different path in a different life. I couldn't go back. The forest wouldn't let me leave. Every step took me to a different bend, a different forest, a different reality. I began to understand that this forest was where all realities converge, where I could never truly escape. It wasn't where I'd find answers. It was where I'd become part of something unseen, where the edges of what's real and imagined dissolved. One night, I met someone in the forest. He didn't say much, just looked at me with tired eyes, as if he'd lived here for centuries. He raised a hand and pointed to the markings on the trees. Symbols I'd seen before, those strange shapes, those alchemical signs from the mirror. "We don't belong here," he said, his voice rough, as though he'd spoken these words too many times. "But this is where everything meets. All realities lead to this place." A chill spread through me as I realized he wasn't just talking about the forest. He was talking about me, about us, about everything that ever existed. He went on, "There are places you can't return from, places with no way back. And you'll never find the exit. His words felt like a curse. The forest was not a place of salvation. It was where our realities are forgotten, where decayed memories are wiped away. And inside me, everything began to splinter. I no longer knew where I belonged. Every time I tried to leave, I ended up back in the same forest. Every time I thought I'd broken free, I was dragged into another layer of reality, where everything began again. The forest isn't a place I can escape. It's the place that holds me. And maybe it always will. I no longer know if I'm awake or not. Everything seems to have turned into a sequence of layered dreams, overlapping hallucinations. The forest was not the place of peace I was searching for. It was where I lost myself. But there's one strange thing I've noticed throughout this journey. The people I encountered all carried strange symbols. I remember the first time I met him. He wasn't like anyone I had ever seen. He had pale blue eyes, slightly hazy, as if he lived within a fog that never lifted. His skin was abnormal too, washed out in color and long. Strange scars ran along his arms, as though he'd endured a long battle won with no end. But what struck me the most were the symbols. They weren't ordinary markings I'd seen before. They looked like glyphs carved directly into his skin, like imprints from another reality. They glowed faintly in the dark, as if they were alive, shifting, changing. "You've seen them too, haven't you?" he asked, his voice strange, a blend of exhaustion and deep understanding. These symbols, they're signs of connection, of doors we can't control. I don't remember how I answered. I just recall his eyes following me, seeing into truths I hadn't yet grasped. He continued, "We're not just wanderers. We are bearers of symbols. And each of those symbols leads us to another door, another world. You think you're walking through forests, but really, you're stepping into dimensions the human mind can't comprehend." A chill spread through my chest. His words reminded me of the strange things I had seen in the woods, in the mirror, in nightmares, those symbols, the unexplainable events, the creeping sensation that something was watching me, waiting for me. "These symbols weren't made by us," he went on. "They are traces of entities, creatures that don't belong to this world. And every time they appear, they bring us closer to breaking the barrier between realities." I couldn't understand everything he said, but I knew I couldn't leave. Something bound me to this place, forced me to face what was unfolding. The symbols on his skin began to spread outward, as if they were passing something on to me. "You won't escape unless you understand them," he said, the tone of someone about to say goodbye. "But even if you don't, the connection will go on. And one day, you'll realize you're no longer human. You will become part of the symbols, part of an existence beyond comprehension." With those final words, he vanished into the dark, leaving behind only the glowing marks on his skin, signs of a new beginning, a journey that could never be reversed. I couldn't stop thinking about what he said. I started seeing the symbols everywhere, in the trails of the forest, in strange images within my dreams. Each symbol seemed to carry a message, a direction I couldn't yet decipher. But one thing was clear: I couldn't run. The symbols had clung to me, become a part of me, and one day, they would lead me to another door, a door I could never return from. And I know, when I step through it, I will no longer be myself. That door had appeared in my dreams for as long as I could remember. But this time, I wasn't dreaming anymore. It was really there, right in front of me, a dark, impenetrable gateway, radiating a biting cold from somewhere beyond it. That sensation was familiar, but this time it was stronger than ever. I had known this was coming for a long time. The symbols, the traces I saw in the forest, in my dreams, in the eyes of those who bore them, they all pointed to the same conclusion, a different reality beyond anything I could imagine. And now, standing before the door, I knew I couldn't go back. I once thought I could avoid it, that I could run from all these strange things. But the truth is, there is no safe place. No matter what I did, the symbols followed me, their traces etched into my mind, waiting for this moment. I had become part of it. What I witnessed in Wolf Creek Reserve, and the places I passed through, and the people I met, all of it led to this door. Part of me wanted to turn back, to give up, to forget everything. But another part, something deeper, called me forward, urged me to cross that threshold, and I couldn't resist. Crossing wasn't a choice anymore. It was a necessity. I looked at the door once more. Behind it, I could sense the movement of time and space, as if everything was shifting. This gate wasn't just an entrance to another space. It was a nexus point between countless realities. Those symbols, those signs that haunted me throughout this journey, were the keys to unlock it. Each mark, each character carried a fragment of a greater secret, of a being beyond comprehension, waiting on the other side. I placed my hand on the door. The freezing sensation pierced through my body, but I didn't pull away. I could feel the power of this door, as if it was aware of me, as if it had been waiting for me all along. When I opened it, there was no sound, no flash of light, only darkness, a deep, endless void. Each breath I took grew heavier, and each heartbeat dragged me closer to the abyss of truth. I stepped through. Everything changed instantly. Space itself shifted around me. No more forests, no distant villages, no strange symbols carved into bark or stone. Instead, I saw a realm completely different. A dark world where no physical form held shape. Everything was blurred, as if I had stepped into a void of pure nothingness. But I wasn't alone. I could sense its presence. The entity I had only heard about in stories from those marked with the symbols. In the words of the paranoid man, Robert. It was beside me now. I couldn't see it, but I knew. It was watching me, observing my every step. It was a presence I could never describe, something beyond human comprehension. But I knew. It could see me. It could feel me. I couldn't go back. Not now. By stepping through that door, I had become part of this world, of this space. I was no longer human. I was a bearer of the mark. The cold wind swept past me again, carrying the sounds of faint breaths, of footfalls without form. I don't know if I can endure this, if I can survive in this world of symbols and incomprehensible beings. I don't know. All I know is that here, there is no way back. The door has closed behind me, and it will never open again. It's too late to turn back. Inside this space, time felt disconnected. Everything became vague, unpredictable. The scenery before me was nothing I had ever known. Bizarre images, indeterminate shapes overlapping one another. Space distorted, as if I were looking at a painting cracked open from the inside. I couldn't call it a world. This was a space without rules, without order. I began to move, each step feeling endlessly drawn out, heavier, more exhausting. Although there were no signs of any living beings, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me from the darkness. It was a peculiar sensation, uncomfortable, indescribable, as if I wasn't alone in this space. But I saw no one, heard no sound, only that feeling, unshakable, inescapable. The deeper I went, the more I sensed a strange transformation. With every step, it felt as though I was intruding upon another realm, a space where all concepts of matter and existence had lost their meaning. Odd shapes flickered past me. Indistinct silhouettes danced around me. They had no definite forms, just shifting shadows moving through a hazy dimension. And somehow, it felt like they were watching me, urging me forward. I didn't dare turn back. I didn't dare stop. A part of me knew that if I stopped, something would happen, something beyond my control. I could only move forward, despite the fear growing steadily within me. Then I heard footsteps. Not mine, but strange, unsettling sounds, as if someone, or something, was walking behind me, alongside me, yet leaving no sign of its presence. Each step shattered the eerie silence, but whenever I looked back, there was nothing but darkness and warped shapes curling in on themselves. And then it appeared, not as a creature with form, but as a feeling, an icy presence, heavy and formless. It surrounded me, enveloped me like a black fog. A whisper rose, not from any human voice, but from somewhere deep within this space, from the very cracks in reality. You cannot escape. That voice wasn't a sound, it was a sensation. It sank into my mind, wrapped itself around my thoughts, disoriented me. I felt the fear, the despair swelling in my chest, but I couldn't leave. The sensation of being trapped in an invisible snare rendered me helpless. A shadow flickered across my vision, so fast I couldn't catch its shape. But I knew it was there, inside the space with me. I couldn't see it with my eyes, but I could feel its presence, like a massive, unseen specter observing my every move. I kept walking. I didn't dare stop. I didn't dare look back. Each step brought me closer to some invisible abyss. The door I had walked through at the beginning now seemed unreachable, gone, or perhaps it had never existed at all. Suddenly, a streak of light appeared in front of me, a faint glow, like a flickering lamp in the darkness. I began to run toward it, hoping to find an exit, a sign that I could still go back. As I drew closer, I realized it was a mirror, but not an ordinary mirror. It didn't reflect the space around it. It reflected something else, another reality, a version of me, but not me. I saw myself in the mirror, but my eyes stared back at me blankly, as if I had already been replaced. I reached out to touch the mirror's surface, and instantly, a freezing wave surged through my body. I couldn't pull my hand away. It felt as though it was being drawn in, pulled into the mirror, into another space. That sensation dragged me down into an unfathomable abyss. There was no other way. I could no longer turn back. It feels like an invisible force is pushing me into the mirror, pulling me into another space where everything is distorted and warped. A sense of urgency rises within me, as if I've been torn away from my familiar reality and thrust into a land without rules. I can't see anything clearly except for the dense darkness, not the usual kind of darkness, but a heavy shadow, as if it is swallowing everything around me. Every time I try to move, it feels like something is tightening around my body, as if this space is squeezing me into an invisible hole. I can't see the way. Can't feel anything except for faint vibrations and the cold seeping into every cell of my body. This space has no life, but it is filled with menace. Everything seems to be suppressed in something dark, as if an invisible power is holding back and watching my every move. Suddenly, I realize there's something around me, not a creature, but something invisible, but present everywhere. I startle, feeling something icy running down my spine. It's the presence of an entity, something that has been here for a long time, existing within the cracks of this space. I can't see it, but I can feel its presence. It's a powerful force, and I sense that it's ready to act. Just as I turn around, I see it. Not a specific creature, but a large shadow with no clear shape, yet immense, covering everything. The faint lights reflecting from the walls of this space form distorted images of it, shadows with no fixed shape, yet bearing an ominous quality, a dark presence that can't be described. I know I can't escape anymore. This barrier, it's a trap, an invisible snare I can't comprehend. It was set long ago, and now I am a part of it, unable to break free. Suddenly, I realize I'm standing in a circle, formed by strange streaks of light, flowing around me like an invisible protective layer. It's a barrier I can't break. But is it a protection, or is it the final trap? A trap that no one can escape from? These questions have no answers, only a sense of helplessness. I step closer to a streak of light, trying to reach out, seeking an escape, a solution. But as my hand touches that streak of light, a powerful current runs through my body. Pain, not just physical pain, but feeling as if I'm being torn apart from the inside, as if my presence here is an intrusion into this barrier, into this reality. Every time I touch the streak of light, I sense whispers and inaudible words, sounds emanating from the cracks in space. The sounds are not from humans, but from something eternally trapped between two realities. The voices are unclear, but they repeat in my mind, as if trying to change me. Can't escape. It's too late. Fear rises within me, but I can't stand still. I know that if I stop, I'll be swallowed whole. I can't look back, can't stop. I continue moving forward, searching for an escape, seeking one last hope. Then I realize this barrier is not an invisible wall I can break. It's a circle, an endless cycle. It's keeping me here, not because I can't escape, but because I've been pulled into it without realizing. I can't go back, can't escape. I am part of this barrier, and this barrier will keep me here, until time no longer matters, until no one can remember me anymore. Arthur Melvin, the name I once proudly carried, has now become a part of this silence, a forgotten name within this twisted boundary. I am no longer the man of the city, no longer the one who lived among numbers and cold logic. I have stepped into a world where understanding has no place, a world where even my name is erased, tangled in the darkness of shattered realities. I don't know if anyone remembers me outside of these meaningless words, but one thing I know for certain, I cannot escape. I cannot go back. I have been pulled into an endless spiral, where each step I take only leads me deeper into the delirium of myself. Time no longer matters. Space no longer holds meaning. And the name Arthur Melvin, the name I once took pride in, is now but a faint memory, reverberation of the past, swallowed by nameless shadows. But no matter what, I still remember my name, and perhaps that is the only thing I can hold on to, even if it may fade over time. For in this world, where everything is twisted and distorted, the name Arthur Melvin remains the final trace of someone who once lived, even if only in a lost reality.